Alright, so our next order of business while we're waiting for our part to arrive, we're going to try to address this exhaust leak issue. And we're going to take this pipe out to do it so we got a little more room to work. And if you look behind your rear fender where it hooks to your muffler, there's a spring right here that you need to take off. And if you can see it, there's also one on the bottom. You come up to the front, you got one spring that hooks here, and then behind your front tire, if you can see, there's a spring here that hooks to your header. That has to come off, and also one on the bottom. So you got three springs. Two in the front, you got the one in the middle, back here, and then two in the back. So you take those three springs off, and you should be able to take this whole tube out. It'll give you a little more room to work on it. Alright, so we've got our springs taken off. The back here, top and bottom taken off. You got the one underneath on here taken off. And also the two in the front by your header. They're all taken off. So give it a little wiggle. It should drop right out. Alright. As you can see, it was patched with a weld, but it's still leaking and melting our plastic. So we're probably going to grind it off, clean it up a little bit, and depending on how it looks, either put a small bead of weld over it or we'll put a band-aid over it like this hole. Alright, so we got the exhaust pipe over at our old workbench here. Got out our Makita grinder, and we're just going to clean up the old welds on it, get any excess off, see if we can find where it's actually coming out of, because right now it's a little bit rusted and you can't really see any holes. So we're going to start grinding now. Get a little bit of grinding and then you can pause it so you can see it all. Alright, we got it pretty well cleaned up with the grinder, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the camera or not, but there's a little hole right here that's obviously going right through the pipe, and on the bottom it looks like this patch never got fully welded, so it's actually leaking all along the bottom of the patch between this weld and where the plate actually is. And I think that's where it was melting the plastic. So since it's on this bend in the pipe, we won't really be able to get a good seal if we just put a wrap around it like this. So I'm going to break out the wire feed welder, patch this hole up here, and try to run a nice bead down here just to seal that off. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if it stops melting our plastic, that's what we'll be going for. Alright, got the welder out. It's just the old Century gasless wire feed welder. It uses a flux core wire, so you don't have to have any bottles of gas or anything with it. It's really nice for light work like exhaust tubing, like what we're working on today, or anything, any thin metals. For heavier stuff, you're definitely going to want to use the gas shielded kind, but this is what I have, so this is what we're going to use. And of course, you're going to need some equipment, PPE gear, stuff like that. You got a slag hammer, file just for cleaning stuff up, a clamp if you need to hold anything together or hold it down. A pair of leather gloves is really nice when you're welding. If any of you have welded before, you know it gets pretty hot. And of course, you need the properly shielded or tinted face shield. Different kinds of welders need different tints, so make sure you have the right one or you can damage your eyes. Alright, we're just going to clean up after we ground it a little bit. Get a little bit more of the rust off of the surface before we weld it. You want as clean a prep area as you can for your new weld. Now, this being an old rusty exhaust pipe, it's not going to be nice and shiny all over like a piece of new steel. But if we clean it up, we'll have a better bond for our weld. Give it a quick scrub over. And for your welder, you're going to have your clamp. That's going to be your ground. And you want it as close to where you're welding as you can. As long as you get it on a nice clean surface to make a good ground. That's where I'm putting it right where I was grinding. And your end is going to be your gun where your wire feeds out of. So we're going to start patching our welds here after I get my gloves on. And the camera probably won't be able to capture a lot of the welding, but I will show you it when we come back and we're done with the welding. Alright, we finished up the welding. We got a nice bead along the bottom where it was leaking. Plugged the hole over here on the side, so now we're just going to wire brush it off, clean it up a little bit. If we can see any other holes, we'll readdress that, put a little more weld on it if we need to. Otherwise, hopefully this is going to seal up the exhaust leak and stop our plastics from melting any farther. Alright, you can see on there, there's the fresh bead of weld. Not perfect, but it looks like it's sealed it. And there was that hole over here, that's also sealed up. Looks a little bit better. Hopefully it's more functional. So we'll take this back and put it back on the four-wheeler.